We're just a little over a week away from the college football playoff beginning. And I tell you what, it is tough making predictions this year. I think there are legitimately at least 5 teams that can win the national championship this year. Maybe even more than that. I mean, it's pretty wide open at the top. Of course, there are, your favorites. I think some teams have a better chance than others, but there are a lot of games that are really, really tough for me to predict. I'm going to go through, give you my predictions, and try to learn a little bit from my mistakes last year. I'll be honest, my playoff predictions were not very good last year. I think that I overanalyzed it last season. I mean, I was digging through stats and looking at all kinds of stuff. So this year, I didn't really do a lot of that. Just thought about the matchups and tried not to overreact to maybe what we saw at the end of the season like I did last year with Michigan and Ohio State. I predicted Ohio State to win the national championship all year long. Then they lost to Michigan, and I changed my mind. So, don't want to overreact to things that happen late in the season too much, and just really evaluate these teams and how good they are. So, yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I'm just sitting there in the shower, and I'm thinking about, okay, who's going to win? Who's going to win between Miami and Texas A&M? This is just a tough game. I spent a ton of time thinking about these games, and I really would like to wait and make my official predictions right before the game start next week. But obviously this is YouTube. We need to get the video up so we have time for more people to see it, and that's why I'm doing it today. I actually thought about doing it yesterday, but I wanted to think about it a little bit more, and I'm glad I did because of some changes that I made, and I'll talk about that as we go through the video. But yeah, I've flip-flopped on several of these games, but it was finally time to make a decision this morning. I did it, and so again, I'm going to give my predictions, and here is the playoff bracket. And what's crazy, most people, myself included, thought that Penn State, Texas, and Clemson were maybe the teams to beat this year. Of course, you're going to have Georgia and Ohio State in the conversation like they are every year, but if a new team could maybe emerge, we thought Clemson, Texas, Penn State, and a lot of people higher on Penn State just like I was. Those 3 teams are not even in the college football playoff. How crazy is that? And my run, I've had a very good run of correctly picking the national champion in the preseason. I can't remember now. I've gotten it right, I think 6 out of 8 years. Obviously missed it this year, so now we're going to be 6 out of 9. But it's crazy to look at this bracket now. There are not any huge surprises from the preseason, at least for me. Obviously, having 2 group of 5 teams in here definitely makes it look a little bit weird. But let's just say things had played out and Miami had won the ACC. And Notre Dame would be in here. So then if you look at that field, Ole Miss is a bit of a surprise for me. I didn't think they would quite get to that level. But everyone else, I thought these were playoff caliber teams. So I'm not shocked. It's more of a surprise of the disappointments, the teams that were supposed to be good that are not here. Texas Tech's a team that I thought was probably the best team out of the Big 12. I thought Indiana had a real shot to go 10-2. I picked them to go 10-2, and they went 12-0. So these teams maybe were a little better than I thought, some of them, but for the most part, I'm not shocked with how this playoff field looks. So we're going to start with the top seed. So we're going to go to the 5-12 matchup first, then the 6-11. 5 versus 12, Oregon versus James Madison. I don't think this game will be close. I think it's a blowout. I think Oregon wins big. I don't think James Madison belongs. I think it's going to be a 30-point game at halftime, that type of game. Again, I don't even know if I'll watch much of that game. So yeah, Saturday night, that's the last game, which is, I don't know why, I guess TV deals or whatever. I don't know why they did the schedule the way they did it. But the best 2 games are going to be Friday night and the early game Saturday. It's really weird, and maybe the NFL's playing. They don't want to compete with them. I don't know. I haven't looked at the schedule, but you got Ole Miss and Tulane here next. 6 versus 11. This game was not close the first time. I think it will be much, much closer this time, and not just because of the Lane Kiffin deal. Obviously, that's going to be a challenge for Ole Miss, but I believe they're still going to have the same offensive play caller. They're still going to have the same defensive coordinator. So there's not going to be that much difference with this Ole Miss team in terms of their operation. Obviously, they will miss Lane Kiffin, but I think it's more about how well Ole Miss played them. They just played really, really good in that first game. I don't think they're going to be able to match that. And Tulane did not play well in that game. And this is a Tulane team that's finished the season pretty strong. So I think they come out with a chip on their shoulder. They compete, and this is a competitive game. But I do think Ole Miss at the end of the day is going to get it done. I could see maybe a 10-point win for the Rebels here in this one. But yeah, I'm going Ole Miss over Georgia. And I haven't even looked at the point spreads. I don't know. I'll look at it right now. I don't know. So yeah, Oregon's favored by 21.5. I think they probably cover that. Ole Miss is favored by 17.5. I do not think they cover that. I think Tulane, again, will make this one interesting. And man, how about that? We have the best of the best, the college football playoff, and we have two games with the point spreads 17 and 20. Like, come on, I don't like that. I understand the group of five getting their shot, but really, and I don't want to change subjects here. Wasn't that really, giving the group of five their shot? Wasn't that really to for like a Boise State, like an undefeated group of five, like a team that finishes in the top 10? Isn't that really why we wanted to include the group of five, not to include, a James Madison team that's just not going to be able to compete? So, anyways, back to the games. Texas A&M Miami. This is one of those games that I absolutely had a hard time with. I was going back and forth on this one. I think Mike Elko's the better coach. I think talent-wise, it's pretty even. Maybe, man, I don't know. It's so close. I think I started to say that Miami might have an advantage in the trenches, but yeah, I'd say Miami has a slight advantage in the trenches. You look at the skill position players. I think Texas A&M has a lot more depth, but Miami is good as well. You look at the quarterbacks. Marcel Reed, a challenge stopping him, his running ability, his strong arm. Carson Beck, if he does not throw interceptions, he's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. If he is throwing interceptions, he's a problem. A problem for Miami, not a problem for the other team. So yeah, it's really, really tough. You got home field advantage for Texas A&M. It's going to be an early game, but it's still going to be loud. I mean, that place, it's one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. So this is one where, again, I just really went back and forth on it. But at the end of the day, if you look back at Carson Beck's career, he has played pretty well in big games. And Texas A&M did not play the toughest schedule this year. Of course, they had the great win over Notre Dame. But other than that, I mean, Missouri was probably their best win. And so, again, how good is Texas A&M? And we'll circle back to how good is the SEC at the end of the video, because I want to make a point there. I just think Carson Beck, having played in big games like this, I think they get it done. I'm going Miami to pull off the upset on the road. And I think at least one road team will win in the first round. And I'm going to go with Miami to be one of potentially two teams to win on the road. Because now you've got Alabama and Oklahoma, another game that I've gone back and forth on. Oklahoma, their offense has been struggling, but they're going to have a lot of time to prepare for this game. A lot of time to correct things. A lot of new wrinkles to put into that offense. I think that's going to really help them to do a little bit better. Because if you go back to the first matchup between these two teams, Alabama outplayed Oklahoma. If you look at the total yards, like they should have won this game, but it was the turnovers. That was the difference in this game. Oklahoma's defense coming up with those big turnovers, game-changing turnovers. I don't know that Oklahoma is able to do that again. Maybe they are, but I don't think that they will force that many turnovers in this game. So it's going to come down to their offense. They're going to have to get something from their offense. And I think that extra time to prepare, again, is going to allow them to have a little bit more success. Now, this is a game that I still was going to go Alabama. Again, they outplayed them in the first game. It's a revenge game. Even on the road, I thought Alabama probably wins this game. But now you've got the distraction of Kalen DeBoer potentially leaving to go to Michigan. Even if there's nothing there, even if he's not even considering it, it's still a distraction. My gut just just flipped around here, and I'm going to go Oklahoma. Again, I think their defense, I think both sides of the ball, they're going to be so prepared for this game. I think Oklahoma at home wins a very, very close game. And I actually have flip-flopped that game and the Texas A&M Miami game. So I was going to go Alabama. I was going to go Texas A&M. And I do, like I said, I think at least one road team will win. So I have flipped those around. I'm going Miami. I'm going Oklahoma. And those are my official predictions. So now we go to the next round, Indiana versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma will not have quite as much time to prepare this time. Indiana will. Kurt Signetti, I think he's the best coach in terms of, just the X's and O's type coach. Maybe he's not the best recruiter. Of course, there's so much that goes into being a head coach of college football. But just having his team prepared to win, I think Kirk Cignetti is the best coach in college football, and I think Indiana wins this game probably by a couple of touchdowns. I actually think they win this game pretty easily. So I'm going Indiana. And I think people don't understand how good this Indiana team is, how talented they are. They see the name Indiana and think, well, it's just a fluke. They've been able. No, this is a talented team. The roster is good. I mean, it's really good, and they could win a national championship this year. So Indiana beats Oklahoma. Then we go to the 2 versus the 10, Ohio State, Miami. Miami, from a talent perspective, I think matches up pretty well here. But I think that extra rest, the time to prepare for Ohio State, and I think the anger that I think Ohio State losing to Indiana is probably the best thing that could have happened to them for this playoff run, just like losing to Michigan last year. I think they come out really, really motivated. I think they win. It's a pretty competitive game, but I'm going to go with Ohio State to win this one. Maybe a 10-point win for the Buckeyes. All right, next we got Ole Miss versus Georgia. First game, Ole Miss outplayed Georgia. If you remember, most of that game, Ole Miss looked like the better team, and then Georgia just turned it on in the fourth quarter. I think Kirby Smart has his team ready. I think he uses the first part of that game, that film, to show them, hey, we've got to play like we did in that fourth quarter. No Lane Kiffin for Ole Miss. Maybe it catches up to them here, and I think Georgia wins. Similar to the Ohio State-Miami game, maybe a 10 to 14-point win for the Bulldogs. Now, a game that I do not think will be a 2-score game, Oregon-Texas Tech. This is going to be a great one. Can't wait to watch this matchup if we do, in fact, get it, which we should. Man, it's going to be a good game. And you wonder about Oregon's – the key to this game is probably going to be Oregon's offensive line against Texas Tech's defensive front, because Texas Tech's front seven is they just cause – chaos. I mean, they are so good. Probably the best front seven in college football. I do worry a little bit about Texas Tech's offense and how much they can score in this game. They're going to have to step up and make some plays. It's really a very, very tough one. I mean, this is one of those games. There are one, two. They're like 3 or 4 games that I'm really having a hard time predicting. This is one of them. I do wonder though about Texas Tech. Have they had the success that they've had in the Big 12 just because they've been the more talented team? They're going to go up against a team that is just as talented, if not more talented, probably overall more talented, I would say for sure overall. I think that talent matters. I think Oregon, and what I've seen from Dante Moore coming through in some big moments this year, I think Oregon wins, but I think it's very close. Again, I think that's going to be a great game. Can't wait to see how that one plays out. So now we've got Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia in the semifinals. Indiana, Georgia in the Peach Bowl. Should be a great game. A rematch from earlier in the season. So I talked about Kirk Cignetti being the coach that I think is the best in college football of just getting his team prepared. Dan Lanning is one of the best coaches at getting his team motivated. Like, they're going to come out feeling like the underdogs, and maybe they will be the underdogs. I don't know what the spread will be. I think that Oregon losing in the regular season gives them that just puts a chip on their shoulder, adds so much fuel to their fire. I think Oregon just comes out and plays a great game. I think they come out, Dan Lanning has them ready. They come out early, they punch Indiana in the mouth. Indiana, they adjust, they make this game very close at the end, but I think Oregon getting off to a good start makes the difference. Oregon beats Indiana in the rematch, and it's the Ducks in the national championship. Then we've got Ohio State, Georgia, which, this could be the national championship. I mean, these teams are both really, really good. This is another one. This is probably the toughest prediction out of all the games I'm having to pick. This is probably the toughest one. But I want to circle back to something I said earlier about the SEC. We think that Georgia is really, really good, and we've seen them at times play like an elite team. But I'm starting to wonder, and as you just look back on this season, how good really is the SEC? Is there an elite team in the SEC? We just saw Georgia against Georgia Tech. If Georgia is the best in the SEC, and Georgia Tech is in the, they're in the ACC, which is obviously not a good conference this year. Georgia should have won that game a lot easier. And you can kind of look back at some of the other games. The SEC was so good in the non-conference, but if you go back and look at the matchups, a lot of them, it was the team. It was a team in the top half of the SEC playing maybe a team in the bottom half of one of these other conferences. And I think we know the SEC is better than the Big 12 and ACC anyways. We didn't really get, we had Texas and Ohio State, Big 12, or Big 10, I should say, Big 10 SEC, but that was so early in the year, and Ohio State played so conservatively. Like, that's the thing. How good really is the SEC? And I think last year we found out it just wasn't that good, and I think we might find that out again. I think it's the deepest conference, no doubt about it. There are a ton of really good teams, but maybe there are not the elite teams. The talent is more spread out in the SEC than it used to be. We used to have one or two, maybe even three elite teams in that conference. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think Ohio State is an elite team in the Big Ten. And I think Ohio State, that proves itself in this game. I think Ohio State comes out really motivated. And again, losing to Indiana might be the best thing for Ohio State to make a national championship run. I think they win this game. But again, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the SEC is just that good. Maybe they are really, really good, and Georgia's the best of that group, and maybe Georgia's the team that's going to win the national championship. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, if Georgia beats Ohio State, I do believe that the Bulldogs will win the national championship. And really, I think whoever wins that game. I know Ohio State, Oregon here, this should be a great game. I think Oregon runs out of gas a little bit. Ohio State's just so deep, so talented. I think Ohio State wins this, and it's been my prediction for a while now. Of course, preseason prediction was Penn State. We missed that one. Ohio State, everyone has thought they were the best team throughout the season, and we thought they were the best team last year throughout the season. Don't want to overreact to that one game against Indiana. I'm going to go with the Buckeyes. That is the team that I think is going to win the national championship. Would love to get your predictions, of course. Give me your playoff predictions down in the comments below, and we'll see what happens.